Okay, so we are back in it. I'm so sorry about that all. I'm glad we were able to finish up your conversations. So the next piece is that we will invite, I think we can have, because we'll have Chris on the screen. So Chris, if you're in here, go ahead and put your camera on, and then we'll choose, I think we can have 6 at a time. So we'll have 4 people volunteer that were scribes or table host. I'm sorry, I keep mixing that up. If you are a table host, go ahead and put in the chat that you would like to summarize or share out from the first session. And then we will go ahead and put you on camera. And as we are talking, we have Chris over here. If you want to briefly introduce yourself while we're getting folks on, and then we'll begin our debrief.
Hi, my name is Chris Chopyak, and I am going to be capturing the harvest graphically. And yeah, so everybody will get a copy of the digital scan of the map afterward, and really looking forward to hearing some of the insights, patterns, and themes that you had in your conversation. Thanks, Ozzy.
Thank you. Okay, so I see names coming in. So for each round, since we'll have folks hop in, we're going to really try and keep this, I know we're over time already, but we're going to try and make sure that we stay within 2:45 so we can hop into preparation for our closing. So Zakiya, if you can let some of those folks on screen, and then I will hop off. Let me see, actually, am I doing that? I think I can do that. Maybe not. Okay, there we go.
If you were a host in one of the rooms, if you could raise your hand, there's an option at the bottom of the screen for you to say more and raise hand. That way I can bring you on screen and am able to find you.
Are coming in. Virginia, if you want to go ahead and just get started and sharing some of what came up.
Sure, yes. I talked with 3 lovely groups, and I hope that my internet connection is enough that you all can hear me clearly. But just to summarize a few things from the first question, what is something you're walking away with? Got a real sense that the emotional work of doing of EDI is very heavy and burdensome on certain staff members, and that a lot of people feel encouraged to push back a little more, to put that with the organization or the institution that they're a part of. That a lot of this work is already out there. There are frameworks that we can use. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, and that, you know, there's a lot of people who can do this work, consultants and things like that, that should be brought in, valued, paid for this work, because it's really important and it needs to be reflected in that way. So that was kind of echoed in a couple of conversations. And then that just to challenge our systems to like really radically rethink what we're doing and the way we've structured things, the way HR works came up as well. And then in terms of actionable items, a lot of kind of mentioning, you know, there was some talk about changing a board to be more diverse and how to do this. And you know, it came back to changing the organization so that the culture is more inclusive, so that people of color would want to be on the board. And then also it was mentioned that, you know, different ways of recruiting, recruiting younger board members, recruiting different people who will then spread the word. That the idea that everyone has power, so even if you're not in a position of power or role like that has a lot of power in your organization, even the people who are in power can't do as much if everyone is not bought in as well. So, you know, looking at where you are in your organization and how you can affect change where you're at. And then with the holding each other accountable or holding yourself accountable, I heard a lot of working with another person to push for change, examining where things are falling through the cracks, and then making specific actions so that you don't get overwhelmed, or you don't, lose track of what you're doing. Specific actions can help lead to an end. Hopefully I got most of the really important big ideas that were bubbling up in our conversation. So thank you.
Is it okay if I go next? We're handing all 3 questions. Oh man. All right. So the biggest theme is taking care of yourself. So a lot of folks gonna take that back with them, so that they can continue doing the work. So self-care, wellness, slow down, ask questions, and also taking all the resources here and applying what they've learned here to the work that they do. Let me see. And also connecting with others who are doing the same work. Basically spending the time and with people who can support you in the work, so that's part of self-care too. And that's another major theme. A lot of people talking about recruitment, how to do a better job in creating that pool, and how to let go of some of the traditional requirement, and so that we can allow more folks to join the organization. Let's see, that's round 1. Round 2, actionable piece they're going to take with you. Once more, take more breaks. All right, folks, take more breaks. That's like the biggest theme so far across the 1, 2, and 3 rounds. Let's see. And keep pushing and lobbying for change, to be more involved in the hiring process. Let's see. To learn how to apply the principle that we're learning, so that other people's voices can be a part of the decision-making process. Let's see. Someone talk about embedding DEI or EDI goals into, embedding EDI into SMART goals. So that's important. Let's see. Oh, and also bringing experts in to support you on your journey if you don't have the internal capacity. And it's also important for organizations that do not have the initial trust of their staff, and to be able to bring in an outside expert to build that trust to get you moving forward. All right, so I'm in round 3. Round 3 is how do you hold yourself accountable? Part of it I mentioned before is to include EDI goals into your own personal performance, as well as doing annual audits, right? To see where you're going, where you've been. Instead of just talking about the talk, make sure you're tracking your work and applying things that you learn, and see where you've been. If you're doing it wrong, or if you're doing it right. Let's see, and also connecting with other organizations outside of your own, so that is a collective work, and also you can get support as well. All right, let's see. Oh, and someone mentioned that for those in Denver, because there's a lot of Denver folks from different organizations, to come together at second round, so that we can make an impact on Colorado as a whole. All right, I'm done.
All right, I could go next. I was at the 6th table. And for the first question, what are you taking away? One of the things we definitely said is DEI work is harder and going to take more time than we might have expected. A lot of us like to come back from a conference or a professional development opportunity and put everything into practice as soon as possible. And that's just not going to work here. We're going to have to take the time to really lay some of the groundwork for this stuff. Also, folks talking about this being both a professional and a personal interest for them. You know, how they get themselves and their families more involved in activism and embracing their identities more over time. We also talked some about how hard it is to be a part of this work, especially if you're a person of color and especially a BIPOC. It's really, that kind of didn't occur to some of us until we saw how important it was to have that self-care be built into our schedule and to really attend to ourselves, that really drew that to our attention. Another thing that came up for us in particular was the idea of there's so much that we could work on here that it's really important to kind of find a focus and a little corner to carve out and stick to it. You know, you need to trust that there are thousands of people attending this thing. There are a lot of people that we can work together with and who can take up other parts of the work that we can't do. So we don't have to do everything. And just that, you know, one thing that's really important is, as much as time as we're spending thinking about these things, it's also good that we're feeling about these things, that we are being human and being alive and more human together, I think was the phrase that was used that I thought was very lovely. And a couple folks mentioning that they were taking lots of notes and they were bringing those notes back with them into their work and into their leadership, and already seeing places where they could really make change in their organizations, which is fantastic. So for the second question, which leads kind of into what action we can do and what our plans are for that, a couple of people really mentioned taking quiet time, actually, especially if you've been in this work all this time, maybe just taking a breather and not having to be on all the time, paying attention to that self-care and making sure that you're recharged and ready to move forward. Talking about mentoring, you know, creating mentoring programs, but also taking the time to be reflective about what that means for people of color and how you could do those processes better. Lots of people mentioning taking time to go through the resources that we've gotten from the symposium and really digest more deeply what we've found and how we can use that, let that give us ideas for what can go forward into practice. Definitely folks thinking about working on practices at our own institutions, hiring practices being one of the things that was mentioned, and making time, like scheduling breaks into your calendar, going back to that, taking time to relax, you know, making sure that you're planning to think about your own self-care. Talking about the importance of, a lot of the time with libraries, we get fixated on doing our outward facing initiatives, but it's just as important to work on our internal education and really curate resources for ourselves to learn more about the work that we're doing. Folks mentioning picking back up opportunities for working on DEI issues that kind of got dropped with COVID, because they're just as important now as they were before. You know, more important now than they were before. Honestly, there are lots of EDI ways that this pandemic is affecting everyone that those conversations are really needed. And especially for those of us who work in education with our students, that they need those resources just as much as the employees do. And we also got to hear about some great public library initiatives that are going on, you know, really reaching out to and hearing the voices of the community and being able to address their needs and build better programming, offering things like supports and people who can do real work to get people in the community into a better place. And in terms of accountability, I think, you know, when it comes to stuff like hiring practices, it's real easy. Are we hiring more people of color? No? Well, then we have more work to do. And we probably have more work to do on this search if that's not happening already. Also that, you know, getting more involved and getting more folks within the organization who can kind of be your co-conspirators and be your accountability partners there. We heard from a couple of people who are interested in taking up more space for these issues in their workplace and also reaching out to their colleagues, especially it seems like younger colleagues and colleagues from other marginalized communities who might be allies, and reaching across to form those accountability networks. And heard from folks who were, you know, making connections with early career people and like if you have the ability to do this, create a position for them to, if you can just make a position to bring someone in and create a more diverse space for that, and then see how that goes and see where the pain points still are. Like, what's working for them, be in conversation with them, what's not working for them. And, talking about folks who have been not entirely satisfied with their library's responses to stuff that's been happening in the news and in our communities, and how we push back and how we push for more action and more accountability within our organizations. And finally, which I thought was really poignant, was, what do you do if you're in a position where you're in a really top-down organization and you don't have as much opportunity to make change or to make new initiatives on your own? And talking about some of the things that you could really do to check in yourself is sort of make sure that you're giving yourself grace for what you can and can't do, and make sure that you're tracking whether or not you're making the small changes that you can make in the places that you can make them. So I've said more than enough, but that was table 6. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone who shared. You all can go ahead and hop off camera, and we'll have a little gander at what Chris has drawn up for us here. I'll go off camera so that can be a bit more clear, although you can enlarge if you click the little 4 arrows there. It'll make it bigger for you. And we will be taking a picture of this, and it'll be uploaded in a way that will be as clear as possible, and you will all have access to it. So I will let Chris go ahead and show you what she created.
So I'm gonna, the beauty of technology is I can pick you up and I can take you on a little tour of the map. So what we have here is the shout out around what's something you're going to take away from people. I think that radically rethink and imagine new systems requires everybody in the room to kind of take care of themselves, understand that this is a journey, not something that can be fixed in a very short time. Think and feel. As well as find a focus. So I think that there are some great takeaways and just some marinating and digesting. And so then we're going to move over here to this lower part. Let me see if I can get this right. There we go. Okay, so this is actionable item that you're committed to doing, and kind of what's your plan. So getting involved in the hiring process, changing up your board, understanding where you have the power and where you do have the power, influence it, and where you don't, move on to something else. Lobby for change, again, taking care of yourself, take more breaks, do mentoring differently or better. That's something actually I'm going to take away from this conference. How can we be better mentors, different kind of mentors to empower people to make change? And then the last thing, there is a typo in here. So for those of you who are grammarians, which, I'm with a lot of librarians, so I'm sure there's a lot of you here. Push for more action, not bush for more action. But these are fantastic. I can make change in hiring. I can get more involved, and I can involve myself across networks, not just within my own organization or within my own networks. When you set EDI goals, set both personal goals, but look at organizational audit or organizational goals, and then finding a way to keep yourself accountable through connecting with others. And that was the invitation that Ozzy put out in her question. How will you connect, conspire, and collaborate with others? That's all I have for right now. We'll color this out and send it along.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was beautiful, and I dropped your email there. If folks want to connect with you in the future, but yes,
thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you for donating your time today, and thank you for reaching out to volunteer for this, because she reached out she was registered as a participant herself, and she's like, what would be really cool for your World Cafe is if you had someone do this, and I'm happy to do it for you. And so I am grateful to you for doing that and doing it in such short notice. Thank you all for participating in this with us. We will definitely make sure you get a copy of this picture, and we will move into our closing session, which will start at 3 o'clock. Please tune in for that because it's going to have Susie Q. Smith, who is an amazing poet. And please come back around here, I believe at 4:30 or 4 o'clock rather. We will be having our end session, our happy hour, which will feature a band called Black Excellence. Thank you again to Meredith for the ASL interpretation. Thank you to all, and I'll see you in the next section. And yes, if you would like to email Chris to get you feedback or to get her feedback that didn't get included that you would like in the picture, go, yes, absolutely. Okay, take care, everyone.